my peeps, and welcome back to the channel. Now, unless you live under a rock, I am sure you've heard and gotten stuck in your head that damn corn song, especially if your boyfriend sings it 15,000 times a day. But to his credit, just as I was considering skipping a video this week for lack of an idea, said boyfriend called me up, told me you're making corn this week, and then hung up. And now here we are, because I had to admit it was a pretty good idea. Or I'm just whipped and do everything he says. Regardless, we are gonna take a trip through the internet's most viral corn recipes of all time, starting with some traditional Mexican elotes. Following that up with some Korean corn cheese, making a famous corn on the cob, but instead of the corn bone, it's a hot dog. Shout out to the queen herself, Jenna Marbles, for that one. And then finishing everything off with some corn and tuna pizza. We can't wait any longer to see which one, if any, of these recipes today are gonna have the juice, so let's get right into this one. As I mentioned, first up today, we're hitting up some Mexican elotes, the recipe that came to my mind first when I thought of a popular corn dish. And to make it, you are gonna have to grab some corn and tahini, some cotija cheese and queso fresco, lots of mayonnaise, and some fresh lime juice. I truly don't know how it's taken me this long to make some elotes. I feel like you guys have asked me countless times for this. But it's better late than never, as they say. And to start our video out super strong, we found an extra little friend in our corn husk. Worm warning if you are a little squeamish, but I thought this guy was kind of cute. Not cute enough to eat the rest of the corn, because I disposed of it immediately. But definitely an unexpected surprise, nonetheless. And to catch you all up to speed, if any of you are unfamiliar with the elote, it is a super popular street food made primarily with a young sweet corn and then lathered with some lime juice, mayo, different kinds of cheeses and chili powders. Today, we're gonna be using the cotija and queso fresco, as I mentioned, as well as the tahini, but I've seen a dozen different chili powders on this. I would say there's a little bit of leeway with some of these ingredients, but for the most part, this recipe is pretty darn classic. Once I had the corn boiled off and stabbed through the heart, I layered on all the ingredients one by one. It was a little bit annoying trying to get all the cheeses to stick on here. Maybe I should have cut them smaller or just kind of rolled the corn in the cheeses, but either way, this looks amazing. I'm sure some of you are already salivating out there if you've had the elote before, but let's give this one a shot. Did I go a little bit lighter on the mayo than the majority of the videos I've been showing you? Yes, I did. I just have a thing with straight up Hellmann's mayo, and the prospect of mouthfuls of it was a little off-putting, so I went a little bit lighter. This is a mess. Oh man. This is a damn mess. It's all over me and stuck in my teeth, but I don't care. This is freaking phenomenal. It seems so simple and so straightforward, but it hits so many categories that your tongue just craves. From the saltiness to the acidity, the savoriness. Everything is balanced so well, and I think my favorite part is the lime juice. That's kind of the base of everything. Absolutely to die for. I will be making this again and finishing this entire thing right now, and this definitely got the juice. Second on the list today, we are taking a quick trip across the globe and trying some Korean corn cheese from the Seongkyung Longest YouTube channel, and to make it, you will need some Kewpie mayo and sugar, some unsalted butter and crab, a can of corn, as well as salt and pepper and an onion, fresh red chilies, and some shredded mozzarella cheese. For the most part, I picked these recipes today based on what you guys suggested most often, which ones had the most views. This video has the title that it does for a reason, but as I go through these, I'm noticing a sort of trend here. We've already got some more mayo, a heat source, this time fresh chili, as well as some more cheese. This was completely unintentional, but maybe, regardless of the country of origin, they've all kind of figured out what works best with corn. Something to keep an eye on. For this one though, I chopped up my fresh onion and chili, I heated up the crab legs, and then excruciatingly extracted all the meat from these without eating every single one. Fun fact, I was always that husky kid waiting in the all-you-can-eat buffets for them to bring out new trays of these crab legs. That's why I'm still pretty decent at cracking them open, and I'm really trying hard not to eat them. But then, you just give those a rough chop and basically mix everything together. This one's gonna be interesting to try out, because as good and fresh as all the ingredients look, I'm not sure how I feel about mixing them all together with quite a bit of mayo and then sauteing that. I know at its core, mayo is just eggs and oil primarily, but I've never used it in this quantity to saute things and let it get baked in the oven too. So as good as this was all smelling, especially when the cheesy top came out of the broiler, I'd say cautious optimistic is the way I'm feeling right now. I guess it doesn't really matter how I feel because I gotta try it either way, and it is complete, so let's give it a shot. Damn, this smells good. If you're a little bit scared that this combination wouldn't work out, like I was at first, meaning the corn, the cheese, and the seafood, do not be, because this is delicious. Every single thing in this works so well. It feels like it all belongs, like nothing is out of place. I actually thought that I wouldn't love the crunch of the onions and peppers because they don't really get cooked on their own, but I love that too. It adds a nice little texture. I could see this being delicious if you had some crostinis to dip in there, or some tortilla chips, or just eat it on its own with a spoon like I'm doing because it is that good. Excellent start so far. Let's see if the next few can keep the train going. We had to get into some TikTok tomfoolery eventually, and for this week's concoction, we've got the latest variation of corn on the cob, but instead of the corn bone, it is a hot dog. And you will need some hot dog rolls and a can of corn, some hot dogs, and some spaghetti. I'm sure, or at least I hope, a good percentage of you remembered this immediately from Jenna Marbles' channel. Although the preparation of hers was a little bit different, the idea behind it is very much the same. Complete side note and shameless flex, but I think my life peaked when I met Jenna a couple years back at Playlist Live. She was genuinely one of the sweetest human beings I have ever come across in my life. Everything you saw in her videos was 100% her, and I miss her so damn much. Anyways, if you couldn't already piece this together in your head, you have to chop up some spaghetti pasta, and then, one by one, over the next hour to an hour and a half, excruciatingly plug each little corn nugget into the hot dog using your little pasta pieces as the adhesives. I'm just gonna be blunt here. This was miserable. The position that I was hunched over made me feel like I'd rather somebody snap my back in half like a glow stick. And upon rewatching this TikTok, he doesn't really show or even suggest that he cooks this, but he has to cook it, right, guys? Like, otherwise it would feel like you got a mouthful of porcupine needles. Right, guys? And I figured the cooking method that would be least likely to make all these corn pieces fly off is steaming it. I threw that in a steamer basket for about 8 to 10 minutes, a little bit longer than I would normally cook pasta. Let's hope that that is enough. Biting into this thing is truly gonna be a game of chance with some potentially bloody consequences. But I guess the time has come. Let's give this creation that could only be birthed on the internet a try. This looks so bizarre. This worked! In possibly the most shocking outcome of any recipe in the last couple years, this worked perfectly. The reaction you saw was not because it was delicious, it's actually quite bland and boring. It needs some kind of condiments or seasoning of any kind, but it's cooked all the way through, it's edible. What a gnarly cross-section. I'm shocked that the pasta is cooked well. If I turn this bun into some garlic bread with some drawn butter, some kind of extra sauce, this would be very tasty. Is it practical? Absolutely not. If you're really craving this combination of things, I guess make a hot dog, put some pasta and corn on there, but I cannot recommend anyone sit there for 75 minutes and torture themselves with this. Still though, genuinely shocked that this worked. I am at a loss for words. And sticking with the theme of bizarre combinations, we've got the tuna and corn pizza from Japanese Cooking 101. I acquired some bread flour and Kewpie mayo, some olive oil and sugar, frozen corn, some salt and water, fresh asparagus, active dry yeast, a can of tuna, an onion, and some mozzarella cheese. Once again, what the hell is up with the additions of the mayo and cheese when it comes to corn, this time even seafood too? I swear to God I did not do this on purpose. This seems like I set this up, I really did not. But we now have a Mexican, Korean, and Japanese recipe that all kind of utilize the same basic stuff. The biggest difference, obviously, is this time all that stuff is going on a pizza with some homemade pizza dough that I quickly whipped up in my stand mixer. I let this rise for about 2 hours at room temp until that was looking nice and bubbly, and then I divided it in half and let it rise again until everything else was ready to go. And while I'm getting everything else prepped up, the onions and asparagus and stuff, I did want to quickly say this. I guess I never realized the impact or potential aftermath of the things I say. For example, in the last video, all I said was that I was in the trenches a bit recently, and the outpouring of support in my DMs and comments was just overwhelming. I do want you to know I'm fine. I'm hanging in there, doing just okay. I love and appreciate every single one of you who did that, and I guess it's good to know that everyone struggles once in a while. It was just a whole abundance of personal shit that was really out of my control happening all at once. But things are looking up now. After all, the best season of the entire year is right around the corner. I can't promise that I'm gonna be able to top last year's October videos, but you can bet your backside I'm gonna try. But let's just hold each other to staying as positive and optimistic as possible. Life's gonna suck really bad sometimes, inevitably, but the sun will always come up tomorrow. Unless, of course, that sun burns out and none of this matters anyway. Anyways, back to the video. Let this be a lesson learned. If you're assembling a pizza on a peel or a cookie sheet like me, you only have about 2 minutes to assemble it and get this slid off because it will stick and you will have a big old mess. I did the best I could to salvage it. I only really need a couple slices anyway to test this out. I'm relying on my preheated pizza steel to give us a really beautiful crispy crust on this. And yeah, I have a little bit of a mess in my oven, but I'd say we avoided catastrophe. So let's give the fourth and final corn recipe a shot. God almighty, I look like a grease ball. All things considered, not too shabby. It's nice and thin, it looks crispy. Look at that leoparding underneath. I love that damn pizza steel. I gotta stay honest, this combination is out there for me. The asparagus is okay. Actually, the corn is pretty good too. I think what's throwing me off the most is the tuna. If that was gone and maybe something else was substituted for the mayo, because there's quite a bit of greasiness too happening, I think this could be really good. I am tempted to go back in for a second bite though. It's not terrible. It could also just be me being a pizza snob too. Something that's this close to home and this different is throwing my brain off a little bit. The crust is really good though. That was a really good dough recipe. I would use that again. Shockingly, for maybe the only time in my entire life, the pizza recipe is in last place today. I did not expect that.
With the M without the AD. Flipping burgers and my money super lazy. Try and make a meal tonight, they ain't paying me. Try and supersize my life with my 18. Yeah, our style wasn't wavy, but we had a vision.